Hey guys, it's automotive YouTuber who drives a Mazda Miata number 86,523 here, and it's good to be back. Owning a Mazda Miata on YouTube has taught me a variety of things. Firstly, everybody who does make videos about this car does it way better than me. Secondly, everybody who makes a video about this car has a much higher budget than me. And thirdly, they've seemingly figured out how to do everything you can possibly do with the Mazda Miata. One increasingly relevant example in this case has to be from the automotive content juggernaut of YouTube, Donut Media. Now, if you haven't heard of these guys, they have over 4 million subscribers on their YouTube channel, and I'd say at this point are the biggest automotive YouTube channel, finally surpassing Motor Trend, which, if you remember, used to upload Roadkill and all of their other specialty shows on YouTube. And I really have to commend their success because as an automotive geek myself, they make very quality videos at a surprisingly rapid rate, and there's not really much fault that I can give to them in what they produce. The only problem is that they've recently started a build series that has featured a Mazda Miata. The build-along show Money Pit features Zach as he installs aftermarket parts on his 1994 Mazda Miata, which he originally said in the first episode he was building for autocross and track purposes. The premise is that each episode, Zach replaces a different part on the vehicle that you may want to focus on in the particular car that you're building, and at the end, he drives the car, sees how it increases the performance, and then answers the question if the part was worth it or not. Now, I think it's great, but even after a few months of owning a Mazda Miata, once you go down the rabbit hole of Miata modifications and understand the pure cult that surrounds these vehicles, there's some parts for these cars that really don't make that much sense. So after watching all of the episodes uploaded so far of Money Pit, I'm going to give you the honest, budget-focused truth on what mods are actually worth it for a Mazda Miata by looking through everything that's been done so far up to October 2nd, 2020. So let's start things off with what I think Donut Media got perfectly right with their autocross and track-focused Miata build. The first thing that was done to the car was new wheels and tires. And even though I didn't get the best wheels and tires that I could have gotten for my Miata for those purposes, despite getting the basic and overused NK RPF ones and some sticky tires, it's honestly a really good move for the car. Also in that department, they also got coilovers and sway bars for their Miata, which is a perfect way to increase the handling ability of the car for relatively low cost, while also getting completely customizable flexibility for however you want to drive your car. Now, to properly set up your car after doing something that major, you do have to get an alignment for the wheels. And I definitely think that getting an alignment is a must, especially if you want to track or autocross your car perfectly. However, please do not try to do it at home like they did it, because honestly, the amount of equipment that you're buying to be able to do it only makes sense if you are a proper track racer that is going to get their car out of alignment regularly. When it comes to getting an alignment for a shop, there are even shops out there that offer lifetime alignment programs that over the amount that you'd pay for that would be much less than buying all of the equipment and going through all the frustrations of doing it yourself. If you have competent people lining up your wheels, you don't have to worry about buying all of that crap and doing it yourself. Zach's Miata also has a roll bar and chassis bracing, and if you want to know what I think of those two decisions, let's just have a look inside my Miata. Yep, that there is a roll bar, which I did not post a video of me installing because, you know, they already did it and people would say I was copying. And if you look underneath my car, you will find Flying Miata chassis bracing, which I did not film a video of me putting on because they already did it and people would say I'd be copying them. Another great mod that their Miata has that I totally approve of are new engine mounts. The way the Miata's engine is set up is that it's actually cradled between one mount on this side pointed like that and another mount on this side also pointing in like that. And even though the change is not as drastic as what you get in front-wheel drive cars, with my last car, I installed engine mounts, and the difference was night and day on that. Of course, when I say engine mounts, I do mean upgraded polyurethane mounts. Also, the radiator upgrade that they eventually did to their car was another fantastic move. One of the only real factory flaws that the Miata really has coming out of the showroom was that the radiators were undersized, and if you're going to be doing autocross and track, it's basically a requirement that you get a better cooling system so that way you don't overheat your car. But I'm not making this video just to say all positive, glowing things about the Donut Media Miata, because now we're getting onto the category of what I consider to be These are mods that I think are worth it for some people, but at least to my opinion, don't add too much to a Miata if you want something for track and autocross and you want to get your money's worth. So the MONEYPIT Miata has an aftermarket steering wheel, and because my car is an NB generation Miata, I actually am perfectly okay with the factory steering wheel. As you can see, it is an official Nardi wheel. There were other styles of Nardi wheel that were for this generation of Miata, but I think the sizing of it is good. It's made of actual wood. This is honestly one of the best steering wheels that I've ever used. I'm just really predisposed to liking 3-spoke steering wheels. Fits really well to the hands, and it also doesn't impact my legs, because unlike Zach specifically, I'm pretty short. I'm 5'7", so I've got no issue with leg room. I think this is a great steering wheel, but it's for my car. It's different from his. The next thing that I consider to be for a Miata would be a cold air intake. Now, at least for my car, it actually came from how I bought it with this Cobalt air intake, which costs about 140 bucks. Intakes for these cars are on the more expensive side, and the real truth that you need to learn about these things is that no matter what Miata you have, a cold air intake is not going to add performance. It's been myth busted by plenty of other automotive YouTube channels. You're not going to get any more horsepower from a filter and a tube. I think that the main reason you want to do this is sound. The sound difference is great. I think it's fantastic. However, the way that I would do it is I'd just fabricate your own custom intake, because let's be perfectly honest here. It's just a pipe and a filter. As long as you have the proper crankcase ventilation hoses and it fits up solidly and has no leaks, it really doesn't matter how you do it. But an intake's a great way to get sound, not that much for performance though. The last so-so mod that I want to mention has to do with the exhaust. No, I'm not talking about like a full exhaust or a straight pipe, but if you just want a new muffler or catback for a Miata, it's a good way to get some more sound out of it. But listen, it's a subjective thing, but I think Miatas sound terrible with exhausts. Don't kid around. If you go revving at me thinking you're so cool with this, it really sounds terrible. It's a rear-wheel drive Civic. Like, I am still mortified at all of the sounds on YouTube of terrible straight pipe Miatas. Like, if you want it for the sound, go ahead and do it, but you're not going to gain any horsepower, and don't remove the cat and do all this other ridiculous stuff that's going to make your car sound terribly raspy like a Civic. But let's be perfectly clear here. You did not tap on this video because you just wanted to hear me say a bunch of positive things about Donut's MONEYPIT Miata. Because to be perfectly honest, they've done a lot of stupid modifications to that car so far that would be a complete waste of your money if you care whatsoever about making a Miata on a budget. One of the things that Zach's particular Miata needed was a new power steering rack. And I know power steering leaks very well because my last car was a Nissan. But if you remember that video whatsoever, the first time he turned the steering wheel, the entire rack exploded because he forgot to lubricate all the gaskets. But that's not even what I'm concerned about. If you know a thing or two about Miatas, you can actually turn the power racks into manual racks. And if this guy cares about making an autocross car and having parasitic loss from the power steering pump, having it have a manual steering rack is one of the best mods you can do. In fact, if you know anything about Miata-based YouTubers, the Car Passion channel, Greg, that guy knows his stuff, and he has a full video about depowering a power Miata steering rack. But having that done on the Donut car would have been a much better alternative to what ended up being a mess on the driveway.
This sucks.
Something else that they changed on their particular car was that they added a new clutch. Now, I think this is conditional. Like, I would replace the clutch if yours was extremely worn out or if you're having issues with it, but you really don't need to do one in a Miata unless if it's worn or you're intending on putting in a lot more power. And we're going to get to that part of the video just a little bit later. Now, while we're over here, Donut also added a short shift kit, and this might be the dumbest mod ever because the entire comment section is making fun of the fact that they went to all the effort to install the mechanism for a shifter that's not even that long, and they put a longer, taller shift knob on it. That completely defeats the purpose of a short shift kit. If you care about the crispness of shifts, you can save money and buy rebuild kits very easily. But I have never had a problem with this kind of shifter. It's one of the best you can possibly use. Now, Donut's particular Miata has racing seats and harnesses installed, and this is something else that I think is pretty much conditional, because I have been to multiple autocrosses before, and at least where I've been at, they care more about the fact that you're wearing a safely rated helmet than your seats and harnesses. Now granted, some tracks and courses do require different levels of safety, and depending on what you want to do, you might actually want a full seat and harness. But if you care about saving money, the fact that you have to get all these pieces together can get extremely expensive. If you want to understand how all of these parts work together, this is a video of a crash in a normal car.
Was shabby.
Unknown also says he and other cabinet members were missing. Governor Scott visits Tampa later today to promote his new state.
And this is a video of a crash in a race car with racing seats and harnesses. As you can see, if you're going to make that financial commitment, you need to get all of the parts in order to do it, and that can get very pricey. You know something else they added that a Miata definitely doesn't need? A big brake kit. Just take a look at the caliper and the rotor. This is a bigger setup than what you'll see on most family sedans. The Miata has no problem with braking. This Miata is one of the heavy ones of the NA and NB series, and it weighs 2,300 pounds. You don't need massive brakes to stop this car. One of the few mods that was done to this car before I ended up buying it were EBC green stuff brake pads. They cost $70 for the front and $70 for the rear, and just with the pads, you have a night and day difference that'll make the brakes sufficient enough for autocross and light track duty. The only reason you would need a big brake kit is if you're making a certified race car, or if you're going to be adding a ton of weight to the car with other things like a V8 engine. And I think we could clarify that not many Miata owners are going to be doing stuff like that. But out of everything that's been done to Donut Media's Miata so far, I think the biggest money wasters that they've put on the car so far have had to be under the hood. Because no matter how counterintuitive it sounds, if you want to go fast in a Miata, you have to touch everything except the engine. They added a larger intake manifold, which would be extremely useful if it were paired with a larger throttle body, or porting into the engine to allow for more air to go in, or camshafts that allowed the intake valves to open up wider to actually accept the air. They added a standalone Megasquirt ECU underneath the driver's footwell, which cost pretty much the entire value of the car. And then the last mod that we're going to talk about today is the exhaust header that they put on their Miata, which they also did a dyno run with, where you can see exactly how pathetic the horsepower numbers are for this thing when you're doing naturally aspirated mods.
We got our baseline 104 horsepower. So that makes our target 109 horsepower. All right, last run, last chance for 109. Oh, closer, 107 and a half. We've made about 4 horsepower.
Kind of like with the Scion Toyota Baru 86 BRZ FRS, the thing that holds the Miata back the most is its engine. The reason being is because the architecture of this engine dates back to 1987 with the Mazda 323. And if you think about that car, it represents anything except sporty. But I'll make an exception for the rare turbocharged model. Even for this most advanced version of that engine, the BP Z3, it's still a hefty iron block, uses waste spark ignition, and really can't be advanced that much farther with naturally aspirated mods. The most powerful naturally aspirated Miatas out there make 180 rear wheel horsepower, and that's only with individual throttle bodies, thousands of dollars of investment, and custom work done to the cylinder heads. If you want to give your Miata some more forwards poke, then either give it a turbocharger or supercharger kit with an upgraded cooling system and do nothing else, or do an engine swap, because believe me, there are a ton of kits out there where you can put practically any engine under this hood. But hey, whether you're an autocrosser, a spec racer, or just a road enthusiast, there's no real right or wrong way to modify a car. So if you wish, you can just forget everything that I said. But despite that fact, there is an affordable way to modify a car. And that's why I'm here. So thank you guys for watching, and peace out.